Try this again. Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. For today's video I have a special guest, and as you can guess, it's my baby girl Tally. I will be doing her birth story today, so if you guys are interested, stick around. I've actually recorded this video like 3 times. I just put Zani down, my toddler, and then now, because she's awake and she's fed and changed and happy and rested, we're just gonna do this video with her. If she starts crying, I will stop and move on to taking care of her. But if she is calm, we'll just do the whole video. Oh, bless you, mama. And so yeah, if you guys are new here, welcome. If you're returning, thanks for coming back. So her birth story, I don't even want to say it's different. Yes, it is different. Her birth story is very different than Zani. So just a little bit of a background. I have a son who is almost 2 years old. His birthday is on Monday, and she is only 9 weeks old. And with him, I had to be induced at 40 weeks, and I just think both births were so different than what I expected. I don't think delivery is ever anything you can prepare for fully. And so with him, I didn't know what I was going into, especially because it was my first child. I was a first-time mom. And so induction was very hectic. I thought it was the most miserable experience of my life because I ended up with a 3rd-degree tear, and it was a traumatic birth. He had to be vacuumed out and a lot of other stuff. And so at the end of it, I thought, I don't think I can ever do this again. But here we are. We have a girl. So clearly I didn't hate it bad enough for me to have gone back and gotten pregnant again. And so for her birth story, so she was born on November 19th. And I remember the night before, or the day before, we actually went to the hospital because I was feeling off. My heart rate was very high. I was having elevated heart rate the whole day, and it was not like just slightly higher. It was like in the 150s and 160s. And the only other time I had that issue was COVID, when I had COVID in 2020. Granted, I was like 33 weeks pregnant when I had COVID, and so it was kind of like a complication from COVID, I believe. At least that's what they told me at the hospital, and they just said it's kind of like an effect of having COVID, and especially when you're pregnant. And so I didn't think I would experience it again, given that it was because of COVID. But here we were at 39 weeks in a couple of days, and I was experiencing really high heart rate. Like, it was insane. Like, it would go up to like 160s when I'm trying to like just get up and go to the kitchen and get a cup of tea. And so I just kind of thought about it, and because I had seen my doctor the week before, she basically told me like, hey, if it continues like that, just go in and get checked out, but everything looks good. If you don't feel concerned, and if it doesn't, rise again to that degree, you should be okay. But if it goes above 150 again consistently, make sure you go get checked out. And so that day in the evening, we decided, better safe than sorry. Let's just go in, get our workup done, and then if it's nothing, we can come home. If it's something, we will be in the right place. And so we went in around like 3-4, and they checked us in. They hooked me up and checked everything. And of course, while I was there, they got to see kind of a little bit of what I was talking about, but they just kind of had me rest, and it went down. And so they basically told me like, hey, we're gonna let you go home, and when you get home, just make sure you rest up, avoid doing too much, maybe even just have everyone else do stuff for you, and just avoid too much activity. Which I was like, okay, I mean, a few more days before my due date, maybe could come anytime between then, or we can get to the point of induction and just go ahead with that. Now with her birth story, or with her delivery, I had prepared for a natural birth, and I had been praying and trusting God for a positive experience. I didn't want to just go into it haphazardly like I did with my first. And based on the first experience, I wanted to make sure that I was prepared. And one of the things that I prayed about a lot was I wanted to have peace of mind. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to go through labor the way God intended it to be. It would be painful. It might be a little bit uncomfortable or a whole lot uncomfortable, but I knew that I could do it. And so I watched a lot of hypnobirthing videos. I did a lot of worship meditation. I just created a playlist with all the different worship songs that calm me down and just kind of ground me. And I would do that especially towards the beginning of third trimester up until I gave birth. I would do it almost every night, where I would just do some breathing exercises and just go through the routine of just, trying to calm myself down and relax my body and be in tune with my body, so that when labor comes on, I'm not contracting the whole time and in turn slowing myself down. And so I wanted to be relaxed. I wanted to be able to understand, like, hey, this is a contraction, this is meant to happen, and it has to happen for baby to enter into this world. And so on that day, we came back home. We just came back, ate dinner, went about our routine, put Zani down, and my husband went to bed, and me and my sister stayed up a little bit, and we were just like hanging out. And I ended up going to bed maybe around 1, and so I fell asleep perfectly fine. But then around 2:30, I started feeling, I woke up to pee, and I was feeling really crampy. And it wasn't like the normal kind of cramps. It just felt like maybe 2 days before your period, how you kind of start feeling, except it was a bit consistent. Because usually before my period, I'll get a little bit crampy, but it will not be as intense, and it doesn't last long. So it kind of just tells me like, hey, your period is coming. But with this ones, I could feel the cramps. I could feel like my period was coming, but it wasn't going away. The feeling wasn't going away. And so I just thought, well, you're pregnant, like you're pretty heavy, so homegirl is farting. And so as I was just continuing with my night, I tried to sleep, and unfortunately the cramps only got intense. And so I decided, you know what, they're nagging enough that I cannot sleep, so I'm just gonna get up and do something around the house and keep myself busy. If this is labor, I will know eventually, because that's what everyone says, like if it's labor, you will know it's gonna be painful. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna go about my night. I'm just gonna stay up for a little bit, see if it fizzles out, and if it does, I'll go back to bed. If it doesn't and it's labor, it's a perfect time to labor, because one of my desires was to labor at night. I didn't want anyone up. I just wanted to go through the first portion of labor by myself until I needed my husband. And so I had decided that the first portion of labor, it would just be me. I would prefer a dark room. I would prefer dimmed lights. I would prefer my worship music and just stillness and peacefulness and calmness in my environment. And then once we transition into the second stage of labor, I would then wake him up, because I knew that I would probably need his support from there on. And so this whole time I'm going through my cramps, he has no idea. He is knocked out, like passed out, the deepest sleep you can think about. And so I wake up, I start folding laundry, I organize my bathroom, I cleaned my bathroom, I put away all the clothes, and as I'm doing all this, the cramps are getting intense. And then now they're no longer just continuous cramps. It started becoming every few minutes I would get it, and it would be really intense that I would have to stop. And then I would, resume folding laundry or doing whatever I was doing. And then it would come again, and I would have to stop. And so eventually, by the time I was done folding laundry and putting things away, it was intense enough that I needed to just sit on my yoga ball and just lean on the bed, go through it, and then after that I would get up and just walk around a little bit. And so I realized, oh shoot, I'm actually in labor. This is probably true. This is probably happening. And so I go through it from like 2:30. Well, the intensity didn't start until like almost 3:34. And so from then I just went through it by myself until like almost 6 a.m. At 6 a.m. I felt like a little bit of a transition. At 6 a.m. I went through a little bit of a transition, and I'm feeling really intense pain. And so I'm like, man, I think I should wake my husband up, but it's happening so quickly. So I'm just kind of moving around the room and just kind of going through it. Before I knew it, it was almost 7. And so by then he actually woke up and found me just kind of moving around the room, sitting on the wall, doing the whole contracting and trying to like breathe in, breathe out. And he's like, hey, are you in labor? And I'm like, yep. You're gonna get up and get ready. And so he asked me if I wanted to take a shower. I went in, took a shower. He made me breakfast, brought it to the room, and I tried eating, and it was just too intense. And so around like maybe 7:30, we decided like, hey, it would be best if we just went in, because at that point I really believed I was far along. I really thought I was like at least 5 centimeters, and one of my goals was to stay at home until I can no longer handle the pain. So here we are, 7 a.m., maybe almost 8. I've decided I can't do it anymore, and it was probably like 1 hour of proper intense contractions. That's why I decided I can't do this at home. Let me just go in. I just want to know if I'm making progress, and if we are, it would be safe to be at the hospital. The other thing that made me want to go in, aside from the pain, was the fact that my contractions were so close together. And they usually tell you like if you're getting a contraction lasting a minute long, there's a whole rule. I can't remember it offhand right now, but it was falling under that rule that they give you at the hospital. And so I was like, let me just go in. So we went in. The whole time he's driving, I'm like holding on to the car for dear life. I'm just like doing my best not to like pass out, because the pain was so intense. Sitting on my bum was the most painful thing in life. And so I'm just there like, yeah, let's make it. But the drive felt like an hour, and every bump, every little corner, I was feeling everything. And so I'm like, babes, you need to drive slower or faster, or just fly there or something. And so we get to the hospital, we get checked in. I'm contracting all the way till we get to labor and delivery. We get in, and they put me in the same room I was in the night before. And so as the nurse is hooking me up, she puts the monitor around my belly to monitor her heart rate as well as my contractions. And so as she's doing all that, she's like, yeah, well, you are having contractions. Would like to check you and see how dilated you are. Is that okay? And I said yes, because I really wanted to hear that I was 5 centimeters plus dilated. And so as we're there, she comes back in maybe 30 minutes later, and she checks me, and she's like, you're only at 2 centimeters dilated. I was disappointed. I felt like crying in that moment. And I looked at my husband, and I'm like, I know I had been preparing to do this naturally, but I don't think I can do it. And he looked at me and he was like, you told me to remind you you can do it. And so I kept trying to remind myself that one of my mantras for this delivery was, I am the strongest person in the room, and I can do anything. I can do hard things. And so in that moment, I'm trying to remember the mantra. I'm like, yo, throw that mantra out of my head. I don't want it. I am in pain, miserable pain. About like 5-10 minutes later, the nurse comes in and she's like, we need to reposition you. I think the monitor is moving, and so we can't read her heart rate properly. And so they're repositioning me. They can't read her heart rate properly. They reposition me again, and they're like, her heart rate just doesn't seem, right. And so I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't seem right? And so at this point, I realized they're trying not to panic, not to cause panic. And so she was like, well, there's just a bit of a, it's just unusual that we can't, every time you get a contraction, we're trying to kind of observe and see what's actually happening, because every time you get a contraction, her heart rate seems to be a little bit all over the place. And so they're not really like saying definitively what it is. And so my husband asked, like, is she okay? And she was like, and then in that moment I could hear the nurses outside the door saying, I'm not getting anything on the baby, I'm getting 0, I'm getting 0. And so I thought maybe they were talking about another baby, but like immediately after, the nurse just goes out, gets the doctor, and the next thing I know is the doctor says, where we need to deliver this baby. And I actually forgot a part. Before that, before she came back to check on the baby, she's repositioning me. First of all, I had to be in the most painful position while contracting, which is basically on my side, but like my lower half was like positioned weird, and it was just the most painful thing in life. I did not enjoy it. I hated however many minutes that was. It was probably like more like 5 minutes, but it felt like an hour. And so as she does that, at some point she even snapped at me, because I was like, can I change position? And she's like, we're not doing this for you, we're doing this for the baby. Your baby is not, her heart is too low. And I think in that moment the fear kind of caught me, and I just started bawling my eyes out. And so that's when, like a few minutes later, I hear the nurses in the hallway. Then I hear the doctor coming in, and the doctor is like, yeah, we were gonna break your waters, but there's just not enough time to do that. Baby needs to come out now. And so we are gonna go ahead and do an emergency CS. And in the moment, I'm like, I didn't prepare for a C-section. So I just asked her, like, can you walk me through? What does that entail? What is it going to look like for me? What is it going to look like for baby? What about recovery? What is recovery going to look like? Should I be worried? And so she was basically just went through everything, reassured me that everything would be fine, that it would be a simple procedure. And with plenty of help, I should be able to recover within a few weeks. And so we went in, had the baby at 10:30 a.m. I think it was 10:34 a.m. And yeah, that's how she entered into this world. Shockingly and surprisingly, not the way we had prepared, but the way she was intended to come in. And so overall, in as much as everything went completely different or completely opposite of what I thought it was going to look like, because I expected a natural delivery, you know, I expected the perfect picture delivery, not tearing, just baby comes into this world like the Hebrew woman. But looking back, I still think my experience was positive, because I had a really good care team, especially postpartum, because that's where I really experienced a lot of neglect with my first child. But the nurses in postpartum took care of me so well. Like, if I could remember every single one of their names, I'd go in there and just hug all of them. But they were all so kind to me. They all took care of me, especially the first nurse who took care of me that night. She was just the sweetest soul on earth. She just gave me tips on how to get out of bed, what to do, and it was a pleasant experience overall. And the hospital stay was great. I didn't have any complaints. And honestly, looking back, in as much as I was prepared for a natural delivery, I wish I prepared more for all the different outcomes. You know, I had been induced before, so I should have prepared for a possible induction. I had been, you know, preparing for a natural delivery, and that was it. And so I think, even though, like, even when you take birth classes, they do tell you, like, hey, CS could happen in the case of emergency, but I don't think we really dove deep into, hey, this is what you need to do in the event that you end up having an emergency C-section. And so for me, I think recovery was intense. And maybe I'll do another video where we talk about postpartum with a CS and postpartum with her, or how I'm doing. And yeah, but anyways, that's how she entered into this world. We are so happy to have her. It's been a wild roller coaster. That's a story for another day. Maybe when I do my little check-in postpartum, how I'm doing, I will talk about how she ended up catching RSV at like 2 weeks old. and this girl was giving me the anxiety of my life. But now she's healthy and doing perfectly fine, and we could not be more grateful. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.